talk about the first half of the Keiser Report with Stacey Herbert. Stacey.
Hello, Max. Yes, there's the global deflationary spiral is happening around the world, and every single region of the world is basically in a different sort of part of the cycle. And in the U.S., we have where the housing bubble started and the crashed first as well. We have these headlines. Charlie Munger's pessimistic parable of financial ruin. Basically, it's over. Charlie Munger, of course, is vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. He's partners with Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world. And he's written a parable basically about the U.S. and likening it to a casino economy. The population became a population of Ponzi's. They turned over to speculating and gambling as a way to make a living. And it's basically all over. And the only way out is a new form of government, essentially.
It sounds like they need to have a new Continental Constitutional Congress, or whatever they did back there in the 1770s, and create a new constitution.
And the next two headlines, of course, relate to that. Austin plane crash reveals populist fury. Now, we all know about the plane crash by Joe Stack into the IRS building in Austin, but it reminded me of this photo that I found on the internet of a bombing of the J.P. Morgan Chase building in 1920. And now you will recall that in 1920 to 1921 was the biggest and fastest deflationary collapse ever, where like U.S. Retail wholesale prices collapsed by 38% in 1 year. So, you know, there was a lot of populist anger at that time, too.
That's right.
And that takes me to the final headline on the United States.
Wait a minute. Let's talk about that for a second. So there was a huge crash in the American economy, 1920 to 1921. But there was no government need to get in there to try to massage the workings of the economy. And within 2 years, they had snapped out of it in the U.S. And things were back on track, and you had the roaring 20s.
That's right.
So contrast that to the crash of 29, when suddenly the U.S. got involved in a lot of programs, like Barack Obama's getting involved in a lot of programs now. And so the recession/depression we can look forward to lasting a lot longer in America than if Obama just sat back and let the market, be the market.
Well, exactly. You see a lot of governments around the world following what they think are the lessons of the 1929 crash. And they're either having giant stimulus programs or all preparing for war, which you can see like in the UK and Argentina. It seems there's escalating tensions there, or the US and Iran. So who knows where that will lead. In Europe, they're attacking the casino operators. So, many European banks, and, they bought all the casino chips on offer from sale from J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and various other banks around the world. But the governments themselves also participated with these casino operators and hiding debt and all that sort of stuff. So now we have all these headlines. Spanish intelligence probe debt attacks blamed for sabotaging country's economy. So it was a debt attack that sabotaged the Spanish economy, not their own policies of encouraging housing speculation. Another headline related to this, Greek spies hot on the trail of CDS speculators who single-handedly destroyed Greece. Now, we contacted both the Spanish intelligence and Greek intelligence to comment on these stories, but they have not gotten back to us.
Well, CDS, of course, is a credit default swap, part of the derivatives matrix out there that's contributing to the downward spiral of debt and destruction. But so you're saying that now that the debt bubble burst, the intelligence agencies of these countries are investigating who sold the debt bombs and the debt weapons. But when the housing prices were going up artificially due to the introduction of the debt bombs and the debt derivatives, they, of course, said, oh, we're geniuses because our house prices are going up. We're going to keep borrowing against that to buy cheap consumables and get liposuction.
Well, actually, the Greek press names a speculator. So they've named John Paulson, who is a billionaire hedge fund manager. Apparently, he was recently in Athens with Goldman Sachs, who are the bank that sold Greece these fictional exchange rate credit swaps that help them hide their debt. So they would have been best to know whether or not Greece could possibly collapse.
On the deck of 52 financial terrorists, John Paulson and, what was the other one? Goldman Sachs?
Goldman Sachs.
They're the ace of clubs and the ace of diamonds of the financial terrorist trading pack of playing cards, y'all.
all of these intelligence investigations into the debt attacks is not stopping the following headlines. Hedge funds' shortest position ever against the euro.
Oh, yeah.
So this is from Societe Generale. They looked at all the data, and they said that 11.5 billion euros are short the euro. This is partially offset by a 4.4 billion long position, but this is a net short position of 7 billion euros. So the biggest ever.
Yeah, well, these currencies are basically piñatas. So these hedge fund guys like John Paulson come around with a big stick. They whack the piñata of the euro trying to shake out all that money because they're financial terrorists.
And then here's another headline regarding Spain. Spain's Fannie and Freddie starting to show dramatic deterioration. So
What, Spain has a Fannie and Freddie? In other words, they've got a quasi-government organization to make all these bogus loans to the real estate market?
That's exactly correct. It's a quasi-government body, Spanish Instituto Credito Oficiale. So this is it's ICO paper, it's called, which carries the full and explicit guarantee of the Kingdom of Spain, but they're trading more like a private corporation. They're trading at a spread comparable to Santander, for example, which is a Spanish bank. So this is not normal. The FT says that government guarantee means the paper should, we are told, be more expensive than non-guaranteed institutions like Santander.
Look, the government paper is the next huge bubble to crash, isn't it? Because Wall Street created all this bogus amount of money to speculate and to make all these bets that they got bailed out with. But the bailout process meant that Wall Street transferred their bad debts onto the balance sheets of these governments in the U.S., all over Europe, in the U.K., and now the bad debts are still there, you know, festering and stinking up the joint. You know, they're going rotten. Like, you know, like imagine dead fish and Lindenberger cheese. Limburger? Am I saying
Sounds
that correctly?
gross.
All rotting in a festering mass. That's the balance sheet of these central banks.
Well, as these government debt markets collapse and as the governments are forced to cut back and introduce financial austerity measures,
Austerity.
you know, you're seeing more populist rage on the streets. And in Greece, you see them pretending that they're hiring the intelligence agencies to investigate the financial terrorism. But here's my final headline on Europe. Head of Greek debt office replaced by former Goldman investment banker. So the very bank that arranged the fictional exchange rate derivatives is now being brought in to run their debt.
I hate to do that because you can see how my hair is thinning. How's the sound when I'm doing that back there? Is the sound okay? Or is it crazy? Oh, no, the sound's terrible. Oh, my goodness, you're going to have to work that out in post.
And finally, in Asia, now the casino is still in full operation there.
Yeah.
And everybody in the world is actually relying on China to bail out the entire global economy from the collapse of this Ponzi scheme.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a headline. Why this building proves that the next financial crisis will be in Shanghai. So apparently there's a metric whereby you can look at when the tallest building in the world, the new tallest building in the world is due for completion and pretty much coincides with the collapse of that economy. It happened in Dubai when the Burj Al Khalifa just recently opened.
That's right.
2 weeks after the collapse of Dubai.
That's right.
And now the Shanghai Tower is apparently due to open early 2014.
It's the economic phallus theory. That men who take control of the economy with speculative bets create these huge phalluses as homage to themselves, only to find that these huge structures collapse at the moment they're supposed to, you know, flower into some kind of economic growth.
So another headline regarding China, China New Village makes Chinos see Dubai 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
As we were just talking about, the whole the sovereign debt crisis really began in Dubai when we saw the collapse of there.
As I said on Russia Today. I was on Russia Today, and I said it was phase 2 of the whole global collapse was Dubai. I said that. Look it up on Google.
China has allegedly defied the global recession, we're told, but Jim Chanos, who is another billionaire hedge fund manager, he believes that, in fact, despite the 10.7% growth in GDP in the fourth quarter of 2009, he thinks it's underperforming. If you look at the fact that they've spent $900 billion on stimulus, and he thinks that basically they're cooking the books, and also that all those empty villages and cities and malls is a sign that disaster is approaching.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are speculating, or I should say there's a lot of sound economic analysis about the ghost towns and ghost cities in China. It's unsustainable, and eventually they're going to have to, revert to the mean, which in this case would mean a huge crash in the values in China, which, go ahead, yes?
And I have one final story regarding China, because, I wrapped up with the final story on what the governments are actually doing in each of these regions. So in Europe, the government of Greece, for example, is complaining about the speculators while actually hiring them to run their debt markets. Now, this is a final headline on China. Citi, China sold their treasuries because they want to buy tons of gold. So Citibank is saying that the People's Bank of China is the most likely central bank buyer for the 191 tons of gold now available for sale by the IMF. And
that's what I've been saying. That's what I've been saying.
And the Citi speculates that this is perhaps why the People's Bank of China sold $46 billion in treasuries in December.
You don't need no stinking treasuries, China. Buy yourself some of that gold bullion.